I wasn't supposed to be here. After the accident, after Mia died, I couldn't stay in our old place. Too many memories, too much silence. I needed somewhere cheap, anonymous, and distant. Something without her ghost in the walls, or so I thought. Apartment 3C was in a low-rise pre-war building on the edge of Ravensby. Craigslist listing, barely furnished, utilities included, and rent far too low for the area. The landlord, Mr. Avner, was a rail-thin man with hands that trembled like paper in the wind. When I asked why it was so cheap, he didn't answer. Just handed me the keys and said, "Don't tear the wallpaper, especially in the hallway. Just don't." I moved in the next day. The building was quiet, too quiet for how old it looked. The lights flickered on even when I didn't flip the switches. Water ran in the pipes when no one used the sinks. I chalked it up to old infrastructure. But something about the hallway to the bedroom felt wrong. There was a bulge beneath the floor wallpaper. It wasn't just a ripple. It had shape, a curvature like a shoulder pressed through from the other side. I thought maybe it was just drywall damage until I touched it. It pulled away, almost like it inhaled. I told myself it was in my head. That trauma does strange things. But the next morning, the wallpaper in that spot looked tighter, like it had smoothed itself out, like something behind it had repositioned. The breathing started 4 nights in. It was subtle at first, not the sound of wind or air ducts breathing. Rhythmic, slow, measured, coming from a hallway wall, just behind where the bulge had been. I leaned close to it one night, pressing my ear against the wallpaper. It exhaled. Hot air, moist and sour-smelling, washed over my face. I fell backward in pure animal panic. Slept on the couch that night with every light on. The next morning, my bedroom door was open. I had locked it. I was sure of it. On the 7th day, I noticed it. A door on the left side of the hallway, one I swore hadn't been there before. It was covered in the same faded wallpaper, making it easy to miss. There was no doorknob, no frame, just the outline. But more than that, the door was pulsing, very slightly, rising and falling, like a chest, like it was breathing. When I touched it, my fingers sank into it like warm clay. And I heard something from the other side, a whisper, low and urgent. "Don't leave it open." I yanked my hand back and ran. That night, I dreamed of Mia. She was lying in bed, eyes open but hollow. And in the dream, there were footsteps on the ceiling above her. I hadn't spoken to anyone in days. My phone barely got service in the building. But it rang that evening, an unlisted number. I answered. Dead air. Then, "Did you open it?" The voice was mine, distorted like a cassette tape warping in heat. Click. I checked the hallway again. The breathing door was open just an inch. I hadn't touched it. I couldn't stop myself. I know how stupid that sounds, but the moment I saw it slightly ajar, I had to see what was behind it. I pried it wider, and it opened like tearing skin. Beyond it was a narrow passage. A crawl space, except the walls weren't wood or insulation. They were soft, veiny, fleshy, damp, breathing. The deeper I went, the more the air tasted of copper and rot. I heard things moving behind the walls. Wet things. At the end was a room, circular, dimly lit by no source I could find. In the center was an object, a door frame made of something that looked like bone. There was no door in it, just darkness. I blacked out before I could step through. I was on my bed, not the couch, not the crawl space. It was 3:33 a.m. There were muddy footprints leading from the hallway to the side of my bed, my own footprints. Except I hadn't worn shoes. 9 days. I haven't slept since. I confronted Mr. Avner in his office at the front of the building. I demanded to know what the hell was going on in 3C. He didn't argue. He just looked tired. Very, very tired. He pulled a file from a drawer. Show me a photo of a man, gaunt, wide-eyed, missing several fingers. Previous tenant. Name was Gregory, or Gerald. Went missing 2 years ago. He tapped the photo. Said the same thing. Door wasn't there. Then it was. Then he wasn't. I asked what was behind the door. He just said, "Don't open it again. If you do, don't speak. No matter what you hear. It doesn't stop. From the wall. From the door. From behind the outlets. They all whisper in different voices. Mia's voice. My mother's. Sometimes mine. Last night, one of the whispers said something new. Part of you is already inside. The apartment smells like a butcher's freezer now. Wet, iron slick air that clings to my clothes and skin. The hallway is damp. The wallpaper is sagging, like something heavy presses against it from the other side. And I think I saw a handprint. It had too many fingers. I know I won't be able to resist opening it again. Whatever's on the other side, it wants me. And I think it's already tasting me. Tomorrow, I'll try to find the end of the passage. If I don't come back, maybe someone else will read this. Maybe you. If you do, don't open the door. Even if it whispers your name. Something is calling me back through that pulsing skin of a door. I'm not in control anymore. And I'm terrified that part of me never was. I try to leave again. Packed a bag. Took the stairs 2 at a time. But the street outside didn't look like the one I came from. I walked for 2 blocks. Then 3. Every turn brought me back to the building. To the same cracked steps, the same dead-eyed pigeons watching from the gutter, the same flickering second-floor window mine. I stood in front of the building for almost an hour. Then something changed. I heard a low moan from inside my apartment. A sound that was not human, yet not entirely inhuman either. It was pleading. It was familiar. It sounded like Mia choking on her last breath in the hospital. That broke me. I walked back in. That night, I fell asleep on the floor. Cold. Hungry. Utterly exhausted. At 2:07 a.m., the heat kicked on for the first time since I moved in. Not a gentle hum, a scream, a high, keening sound poured from the air vent above the kitchen sink, like something was stuck inside it. I climbed on the counter, got close to the vent. Something whispered back in my own voice, "Let me out." I punched the vent open. Inside was a clump of flesh. Pink, wet, twitching. It scurried backward, deeper into the duct, like a spider with no bones. I vomited in the sink. The air tasted like bile and old blood for days. I don't remember tearing the wallpaper that night, but I must have. I woke up with dried glue under my nails and scraps of floral paper around me. Behind one section, just near the breathing door, I found a hole the size of my fist. Inside it, a yellowed piece of notebook paper, damp with something I couldn't identify. It read, "You're not the first. The door grows with each of us. Don't listen when it calls. And above all, don't feed it. No name, no date, but the ink smelled like rust. The door is growing. At night, I hear new sounds. Not just breathing, but something crawling just behind the wall, slithering with weight. Wet limbs dragging. Last night, the outline of the door split at the bottom. It now has vents like gills. When I put my hand near them, something behind the wall exhaled hot breath on my palm. There's a new opening now, just beside the first passage. It was wetter. It led somewhere deeper. I went into the new passage against my will. Not because I wanted to, but because I woke up inside it. I don't remember crawling there. My last memory was brushing my teeth. Then I was in that flesh-lined tunnel again, crawling forward on hands slick with blood and something worse. At the end was a room, different from before. In this one, there was a man, no, something that used to be a man. He sat in a chair made of bone and muscle, twitching violently. His face was locked in a scream, but he had no jaw, just open gums, split flesh, and a constant wet wheezing sound. He saw me. He tried to stand. He couldn't, because his legs had grown into the floor. I ran, but before I left, he reached out with one gnarled hand and scratched a word into the flesh wall beside him. Stay. I swear to God the stairwell is longer now. The ceiling in my apartment pulses if you stare at it too long. The radiators bleed when I touch them, and sometimes the neighbors speak in backward words. Mrs. Grantham in 4B used to greet me with cookies. Now she stands in her doorway and mutters, "The bones forget less than you think," with pupils blown wide. Even the lights don't blink out anymore. They wink, like the house is watching. 2 nights ago, I heard her again, Mia, calling me from behind the breathing door. "Jack," she said, like she used to in the morning, voice soft and tired. I almost opened it again, but something stopped me, a noise like ribs snapping. And then her voice changed. It became deeper, wet. "We miss the warmth of your skin." I fell to my knees, hands shaking. The hallway was empty. The door was open again, wide now, breathing faster. I pulled up the floorboards, looking for wiring, anything logical. I found a notebook wrapped in a piece of what felt like tan skin. Inside were entries from someone named Evan. The last page was dated 1963. "The house eats. It doesn't bite, it absorbs. It wears your grief like a coat and calls out to you in the voice of your regrets." I see them now, the previous ones. Faces half swallowed by plaster. They asked me to open the door again. I almost did. God help me, I almost did. The door is not a way out. It's a way in. The hallway walls aren't drywall anymore. They're pulsing pink, veiny. I stabbed them once with a screwdriver. They bled. Thick, dark syrup that steamed in the cold air. The floor squelches when I walk. The air smells like birth. The neighbors are disappearing. Mr. Avner won't answer his door. I can feel it now. The door wants me. It whispers constantly, even when I cover my ears. "You belong to us now. I'll go through it. I have no choice. It's inside my dreams. It's under my skin. Maybe on the other side there are answers. Or maybe there's just more of the house. The house is no longer just a place. It's a predator, and I am its prey." I woke up to the sound of my own heartbeat echoing through the walls. The apartment was silent, yet the rhythm persisted, syncing with the pulsing of the fleshy door. It was as if the house had adopted my heartbeat, or perhaps I had adopted its. The air was thick, humid, and carried the scent of decay. The wallpaper, once floral and faded, now appeared veined and translucent, revealing twitching muscle beneath. The transformation was no longer subtle. The house was alive, and it was changing. I approached the bathroom mirror, hoping to find solace in my own reflection. Instead, I saw a version of myself that was gaunt, eyes sunken, skin pallid. Behind me, the hallway stretched infinitely, lined with doors that breathed in unison. When I turned around, the hallway was as it had always been, short, ending with a pulsing door. But the mirror showed a different truth, one that I couldn't ignore. Desperate for answers, I visited Mrs. Grantham in 4B. She opened the door, her eyes wide with fear. "You've seen it, haven't you?" she whispered. I nodded. "It feeds on grief," she said. "It lures those who mourn, offers them a chance to reunite. But it's a lie. A trap." She handed me a worn journal. "This belonged to my husband. He was the first. Don't make the same mistake." The journal detailed experiences eerily similar to mine. Visions, whispers, the door. He spoke of a realm beyond, a place where the walls pulsed with life, and the air was thick with sorrow. He wrote of others trapped, their identities consumed, becoming part of the house. "The house doesn't just feed on the living," he wrote. "It feasts on memories, on identities, until there's nothing left." I decided to confront the door. Armed with a journal and a flashlight, I stepped into the fleshy corridor. The walls contracted and expanded, mimicking breath. The air was warm, moist, and carried the scent of iron. As I ventured deeper, I heard whispers, voices of loved ones, past regrets, and unspoken fears. They beckoned me, pulling me further into the abyss. I reached a chamber pulsating with a rhythmic beat. At its center was a massive heart, veins extending into the walls, supplying life to the house. Faces emerged from the walls, distorted, anguished, and familiar. Among them, Mia. "Join us," she whispered. "In the pain." I realized then that the house offered solace, a release from grief, but at the cost of one's essence. It was a siren, luring the sorrowful to their doom. With every ounce of willpower, I turned away, retracing my steps. The house resisted, walls closing in, whispers growing louder. But I pressed on, emerging back into my apartment, gasping for air. The door was gone. The hallway was silent. But the scars remained on my skin, in my mind, and within the walls. I moved out the next day, leaving behind the journal and a warning etched into the wall. "Beware the door that breathes like flesh." But sometimes late at night, I hear it, the faint sound of breathing, the whisper of my name, and I wonder if I ever truly escaped. There's a room behind the door, but it does not open with a key. It opens when you dream, when your defenses are down, when it wants you most. It had been 10 days since I fled the apartment. 10 days of sleepless nights in a rented room across town. The windows covered in thick curtains, the doors double locked, a baseball bat resting beside the bed like some useless talisman. And yet it came anyway. It didn't need the apartment anymore. At first, it was just the dreams, the kind that settle under your skin. I'd wake up gasping with the smell of iron in my nose, the sound of whispering just outside the window. I could feel it watching me from behind closed eyes. Then, last night, I woke to find the bathroom door ajar. I had locked it, and it was breathing. A soft, wheezing sound, wet like an asthmatic breath through meat. I stood frozen at the edge of the bed. My phone buzzed. No number. Just a single message on the cracked screen. "It's not where you left it anymore." I returned to the apartment building the next morning. Not to move back in, not to reclaim the little life I had left behind, but to confront it, to understand it. I don't know what I expected. Closure? An ending? What I found instead was silence. Heavy, loaded silence, like the breath before a scream. Apartment 3C was still boarded up by the landlord after my sudden departure. But the door was missing. Or rather, it was gone from the wall where it had once pulsed and lived. In its place was smooth plaster, fresh paint. Too fresh. As I turned to leave, Mrs. Grantham was standing at the bottom of the stairwell, pale and still. "You've seen the basement, haven't you?" she said, voice like paper. I told her no. "That's where it started," she said. "That's where it grows." I found the basement entrance behind a stack of old chairs in the utility hallway. The lock was rusted, but it broke with little effort. The steps beyond were old stone, narrow, and descending into dark that felt deeper than it looked. There were rooms beneath the building, half-flooded storage chambers, crawl spaces eaten with mold. And further in, I found something else. A hallway, carved into the earth. Too smooth, too wet. Walls the color of old meat. A passage where no blueprints said one should exist. At the end of that hallway, a door. It breathed. I didn't open it. Not then. Instead, I placed my hand on it. Warm. Slick. And I listened. Inside, a voice. It wasn't whispering this time. It was weeping. Mia, or something that sounded like her. I pressed my forehead to the door and almost collapsed. Memories, raw, alive, poured into my head. Our old apartment, her laughter, the night she died, her face inches from mine. Only now it was peeling, twitching, still smiling. I stumbled back. The hallway began pulsing like a throat. I ran. The door behind me thumped, once, loud and wet. Back upstairs, I confronted Mrs. Grantham. She didn't resist. She just opened her door wider. Her apartment was packed with books, maps, diagrams, pages pinned to the walls with yarn linking names and rooms and dates. "It feeds on trauma," she told me. "On pain. It finds cracks in the soul and stretches them open until the body is just an entry point." She showed me photos, residents who had vanished over the years. All of them had experienced some kind of loss, a child, a spouse, a sibling. Grief was the thread that bound them. It offers comfort and then takes everything. She opened a drawer. Inside was a box. Inside the box, a shriveled thing, like a mummified slug, the size of a baby's fist. It pulsed faintly. This came out of my husband after he walked through the door. It was inside him, growing. I vomited. That night, I didn't sleep. Not willingly. I held on as long as I could. But eventually, exhaustion won. I dreamed. I dreamed of the hallway in the basement, of the door. But this time, I was on the other side. The room inside was massive. Impossible. Walls of flesh, stitched together by tendons and shadows. Faces melted into the walls, their mouths open in silent screams. Some of them were people I knew, neighbors, old friends, even my father. And there, in the center, something waited. It wore Mia's face. "You're already here," she said. I woke screaming. The next morning, I noticed something wrong with my reflection. It mimicked me too, slowly. A fraction of a second lag, like a buffering feed. Then it smiled before I did. I punched the mirror. Blood poured from my knuckles, but when I looked again, the face wasn't mine anymore. It was watching me from the shards, breathing. I went back to the building with fire. A jerrycan of gasoline. A lighter. I didn't care about consequences anymore. But when I entered the basement, the hallway was gone. Instead, the wall had shifted. No, the building had shifted. The walls didn't match the layout anymore. Doors appeared where none had been. Furniture was wrong. Paintings were missing. The building was reshaping itself, like a living body healing over a wound, or hiding one. I backed out and left. But when I got back to the motel, it was there, the door, just standing in the corner of the room, waiting. Some doors are not meant to be opened. Some memories are not meant to be unearthed. Yet once awakened, they never truly sleep again. I had fled the apartment, the building, the city, but the door followed. It appeared in dreams, in reflections, in the corner of my eye. Its presence was a constant, a shadow that clung to my very soul. I realized that escape was futile. The only way out was through. I returned to the building, now abandoned and decaying. The air was thick with mildew and rot. The walls pulsed faintly, as if remembering their former life. I descended into the basement, the heart of the house. The door awaited, its surface slick and warm. Without hesitation, I stepped through. Beyond the door was a labyrinth of flesh and bone. Corridors twisted and turned, walls lined with faces frozen in silent screams. The air was thick with the scent of decay and despair. I wandered, guided by whispers and memories. Each step took me deeper into the house's consciousness. At the center of the labyrinth, I found the heart, a massive, pulsating organ, veins stretching out like roots. It beat in rhythm with my own heart, syncing our pulses. I realized that the house was alive, feeding on pain and memories. It had absorbed the souls of those who had entered, including Mia. Mia appeared before me, her form shifting and unstable. She spoke in a voice that was both hers and not hers. "You came back. Why?" "To end this," I replied. She smiled, a grotesque twist of her former self. "Then let us end it together." I understood what needed to be done. To destroy the house, I had to destroy its heart. I plunged a shard of bone into the heart, feeling its pain as if it were my own. The house screamed, a sound that echoed through every corridor. The walls convulsed, the faces wailing in unison. I ran, the house collapsing around me. Corridors crumbled, flesh tearing apart. I reached the door, now brittle and cracking. With a final push, I burst through, emerging into the cold night air. The building behind me imploded, a final sigh escaping its ruins. I survived, but I was not the same. The house had left its mark, a scar on my soul. I could still hear the whispers, feel the pulse. But I had faced the door and lived. And that would have to be enough. Absolutely. Here's part 6, the final and longest part of your horror story. The door that breathes like flesh, told as a true account. This ending is designed to leave a lasting, deeply unsettling impact, with a climactic fusion of psychological and supernatural terror. You don't walk away from something like this. You carry it. It lives behind your eyes, breathing when you breathe. I was wrong. I thought the house had died with its heart, that the door, the living, breathing wound in the wall, had perished along with it, that the screams had ended. But they hadn't. They just learned to whisper. I moved 3 times in a year, first to a coastal town in Maine, then to a gray studio in Chicago, and finally to a quiet cabin up north, miles from anyone. I chose isolation the way a burn victim chooses cold water. It wasn't about comfort. It was about survival. But even in the woods, far from the city, I could still hear it. Every evening, as the light dimmed, the walls of my new home would exhale, not in wind or sound, but in pressure. A subtle, undeniable shift in the air, like something bracing itself on the other side, waiting. And sometimes I would hear my name, not loud, not direct, not in the way someone calls out, but the way a voice curls up from the back of your own mind, wrong because it isn't your thought. They come in glimpses now, in dreams that aren't dreams, in places where my eyes linger too long on shadows. I've seen flesh-colored paint bubble on plaster. I've seen pulses under wooden floorboards. I've seen a handprint appear on the inside of my bathroom mirror while I was brushing my teeth. I live alone. Worse, I've begun catching myself doing things I don't remember starting. I wake up with dried blood under my nails. I find scraps of paper I didn't write. Let me back iron. You opened me. The door was never the beginning. And then there's the whisper. Now it doesn't only say my name. It says Mia's. It says Mom's. It says come closer. Last week I received a package. No return address. No note. Inside, a fragment of wood, dark, rotted, spongy. But it wasn't wood. It was warm to the touch. When I held it, I felt a heartbeat that wasn't mine. I dropped it and vomited. That night, I dreamt of the hallway in the original house. But now it stretched infinitely, and every 10 feet, another door stood ajar. Behind each, a version of me stared out, some whispering, some weeping, one covered in burns. One laughed. It said, "You've been walking through us this whole time. There is no outside anymore." I woke up to the sound of a knock. 3 days ago, the wall beside my bed began to change. At first, just a discolored patch. Then, texture, pores, heat. By the second night, it began to move in time with my breath. Last night, the outline of a door frame appeared, bulging outward with each exhale. The flesh was slick, stretched across, something unseen pressing against it. Not trying to break through, not yet, but listening. I heard a low groan beneath the surface. It didn't want to kill me. It wanted to merge, to become whole, to bring me inside. I made a decision. If this door was following me, if it was still alive, then maybe it wasn't tethered to a place anymore. Maybe it had attached itself to me. And if that was true, maybe I could still go deeper. I remembered what Mia once said when she was half asleep, half sobbing. It doesn't end until we close what we open with blood. So I did something awful. I reopened the fragment from the package and cut my palm, letting the blood soak into the flesh. The door shuddered. Then it inhaled. The wall expanded. A slit opened, wet, red, and pulsing like a wound. I stepped inside, but this time was different. It was no longer a labyrinth of bone. It was a memory, a reconstruction of all the places I tried to forget. My childhood bedroom, the hospital hallway where my father died, the stairwell where I last saw Mia's eyes before she went back into the house. But they were all wrong. Off. The walls were breathing. The windows had teeth. I found Mia sitting cross-legged on the floor of our old apartment. She was whispering to herself, plucking at her own skin like it was fabric. I called to her. She didn't respond, but something behind her did. It stood upright, humanoid, faceless, dripping, pulsing. It moved like breath, rising, falling, expanding. The house had a form now. It turned toward me and called me by name, but not just my first name. It said everything. Full name, birth date, thoughts I'd never told anyone, my mother's final words. The name of the thing I buried when I was 7. It whispered them all backward. There was one more door inside. Small, wooden, normal looking, like a closet, but I knew it wasn't. Written across it in bruised letters. Your turn, T.O., remember. I opened it. Behind it was my body lying in my bed, in the cabin. But from the ceiling above, a shape loomed. The door frame now had veins, and the walls were pressing in around me. I was on both sides at once, and I realized I had never left the door at all. Every escape had been another layer, another false waking. The door didn't follow me. I've been in it since the beginning. This isn't a story. It's a warning. Because now that you've read this, now that these words are in your mind, the door knows you too. You'll start hearing it soon. In the walls. In your dreams. You'll feel the breath before the knock. And then the door will appear. It always appears. And if you open it, even just a crack, you'll never be outside it again. The door that breathes like flesh doesn't open from the outside. It waits for you to let in. I haven't slept in 4 days. Not because I'm afraid of dreams, because I can't. The moment my eyes close, I see the door inside my eyelids. Not in some symbolic way. I mean, I literally see it pulsing like a second heartbeat behind my vision. It's no longer just something I witnessed. It's something I've become tethered to. And now you are, too. Yes, you. If you're still reading this, you've already begun. You traced my steps. You followed the words like veins down the page, and now the thing that lived behind the door has followed you. But I'm going to tell you how this really ends. Because I've seen what comes next. The door. It's not a portal. Not in the traditional sense. It doesn't take you somewhere else. It takes you deeper. Like layers of flesh peeled back from bone, layer by layer, until you're not sure if what you're looking at is inside you, or you're inside it. You remember the feeling of being alone in a room, and suddenly knowing someone is behind you? That's not fear. That's memory. That's the door remembering you. Last night it spoke. Not like before. No whisper, no mimicry. It spoke in a voice that sounded like all the voices I've ever loved, crushed into one and spoken through meat. It said, "You gave me shape. Now I give you mine." I looked down at my arm. It had pores that didn't belong to me. Breathing. My fingernails had become tiny frames, each holding a different version of my own screaming face. Then I blinked, and I was back in the room. Everything normal. But I knew what had changed. I had brought the door with me. It doesn't live in a house anymore. It lives in attention, in obsession, in the dark place behind your eyes when you're not thinking. You gave it that space when you opened this story. You might hear it tonight. The first time will be subtle, a slow groan beneath your mattress. Or maybe the walls will expand slightly as you exhale. You'll think it's your imagination. Then you'll hear your name. Not shouted, not spoken, exhaled. That's how it begins. That's how it always begins. So here's my final warning. Do not open the door. Not even in your dreams. Not even in curiosity. Because if you do, it will wear your skin next. And you'll write this same story, word for word, thinking you were the one who escaped. You didn't escape. You just forgot you were already inside.